Welcome back, students. After learning the anterior cranial fossa, okay, then we come to the middle cranial fossa. Okay, we will learn about the middle. It is the norma basalis interna, and we are learning the middle cranial fossa. Now, if you will see this middle cranial fossa here, you will notice that it is quite narrow in the middle and expanded on lateral side, right and left lateral side. So the middle cranial fossa gives an appearance of the butterfly. This will resemble to the body of the butterfly, and these are the two wings of the butterfly. So this is about the middle cranial fossa shape. Okay. Now, this middle cranial fossa, it lodges the pituitary gland, hypophysis cerebri, in the midline, okay, or in the median area. While on lateral side, this gives lodgement to that of the temporal lobe of the brain. So the temporal lobe of the brain comes and fits here, and here is the pituitary gland, an important gland which lies here. Let us come to the boundaries of the middle cranial fossa. If you see the boundaries of the middle cranial fossa, anteriorly it is bounded by the posterior border of the lesser wing of the sphenoid on right as well as onto the left side. And then it is the anterior clinoid process on right and left side, and then there is anteriorly it is bounded by the sulcus chiasmaticus, anterior margin or anterior border of the sulcus, which is called as sulcus chiasmaticus. Okay, so whatsoever is the anterior boundary of the middle cranial fossa, it is the same is the posterior boundary of the anterior cranial fossa. So this boundary demarcates between anterior cranial fossa and that of the posterior cranial fossa. Let us come to the posterior boundary of the middle cranial fossa. Okay, middle cranial fossa. Now, this is the superior border of the petrous temporal bone. This structure is the petrous temporal bone. This structure, this is right side and this is the left side petrous temporal, and this is the superior border of the petrous temporal bone. Okay, so on either side it is posteriorly bounded by the petrous temporal bone, and then you can see this structure here. This bony projection are nothing but the posterior clinoid process. Posterior, and this bony self-like structure, which is a vertically or slightly anteriorly inclined square-shaped structure, is called as the sella or the dorsum sali. This is called as dorsum sali. So, what are the boundaries? Superior border of the petrous temporal bone, posterior clinoid process, and this is the dorsum sali. Okay, this bony projection is called as the dorsum sali. So, this was the anterior boundary, and now this is the posterior boundary of the middle cranial fossa. Let us see the boundary on the sides. Okay. After learning the anterior and posterior boundary, see this boundary onto the side. Now on the side, this fossa, the middle cranial fossa is bounded more anteriorly by the greater wing of the sphenoid. Let me show you the greater wing of the sphenoid. This bone is the greater wing of the sphenoid, where the tip of the wire is there. This is the greater wing of the sphenoid, which will bound it laterally. Then this bone which you are seeing here, where I am putting the wire, this big bone here which is seen is the squamous part of the temporal bone. Squamous part of the temporal bone. And then it is bounded posteriorly, more posteriorly it will be bounded by the dorsum sali. Okay. Now, this is on the side, it is bounded by a small part of the parietal bone. You see this on the outer surface, this is the parietal bone is here, and if you see it from inside, a small part of this is bounded by the parietal bone. Okay, so it will be bounded by the parietal bone. Here it was the squamous part of the temporal bone, and then this part is the parietal bone, just above this. See this is bounded by the parietal bone. So how many bones are there in the lateral boundary? Greater wing of the sphenoid, squamous part of the temporal bone, and this is the parietal bone. These are the bones present in the lateral boundary. Okay. After learning the anterior and the posterior border and the lateral sides, okay, sides on the right and left side boundaries, let us come to the floor. Okay, so we now come to the floor of the middle cranial fossa. First, let us learn the structure which lies in the median plane, which is a narrow anteroposteriorly, it is quite a narrow extent, and in this the median structure first we will learn, and then we will go in the floor on the lateral side. So floor in the median plane. Now in the median plane, this is formed by the sphenoid bone. It is completely formed by the sphenoid bone, and mostly the body of the sphenoid bone. It is formed by the body of. Now, most anteriorly, as I said, this is the anterior margin of sulcus chiasmaticus, which is forming the boundary between the anterior fossa and the middle fossa. So, just behind this sulcus, anterior boundary, this sulcus is here, and this is called as sulcus chiasmaticus. Sulcus chiasmaticus. And if you trace this sulcus chiasmaticus on either side, this will go into the optic canal where I am putting the wire. Okay, this will go into the optic canal here. Okay, so wire, and this through this wire, then this optic canal will communicate here with that of the orbit. Okay, it is communicating with that of the orbit. So this optic canal, which is lying on to the lateral side of the sulcus chiasmaticus on right and left side, will communicate with that of the orbit. Okay, then this remaining part of posterior to the sulcus chiasmaticus is called as sella turcica. It is called as sella turcica, and sella turcica, which is here, which is in the midline, is divided into three different parts. There is a bump here, a small bump here in the posterior, boundary of the sella turcica, just posterior to it, and this is called as the tuberculum sali. This tubercle-like structure is called as tuberculum sali. Okay, I hope you are seeing. This is that tuberculum sali. Now, just posterior to the tuberculum sali, it is a deep depression is here. Okay, the fossa is quite deep, and this fossa is called as the hypophyseal fossa. This is called as hypophyseal fossa, in which lies the pituitary gland or hypophysis cerebri. Okay, as its other name is. So this is called as hypophyseal fossa. And just posterior to the hypophyseal fossa, as I said, that this vertical plate of the bone is here, which is overhanging the hypophyseal fossa from posterior side. This is called as dorsum sali. This is called as dorsum sali. And if you will trace the upper border of the dorsum salis, this will have two bony projection, which are called as the posterior clinoid process. These were anterior clinoid process, which were at the boundary between middle and the anterior cranial fossa. Here it is the posterior clinoid process. Okay. Now, dorsal sali, as I said, this is the bony plate. Okay, it is square in shape. It is square in shape. Okay, and it is vertical plate. Okay, and as I said that from its upper border, two bony projections are coming, which is called as the posterior clinoid process. Okay, posterior clinoid process. Now this posterior clinoid process, it gives attachment to the tentorium cerebelli. It will give, okay, as we will learn later also, Okay, anterior clinoid process was also giving attachment to the tentorium cerebelli, that is to the free margin, and this posterior clinoid process they will give attachment to the tentorium cerebelli to the attached margin. Anterior gives attachment to the free margin of the tentorium cerebelli. Now in the median plane, if you will see the floor on either side of this sella turcica, then on the body of this sphenoid bone you will see the groove, okay, and this is a shallow groove on either side. See here, it is a groove is here. I hope I will show you in the other skull if groove is seen. So this was the sella turcica was here, okay, and this was the hypophyseal fossa, and this is that groove, okay, about which I am talking. On either side of the body of the sphenoid, this groove is very shallow, and this is called as carotid groove. And this carotid groove extends from the foramina lacerum, which is posteriorly placed, up to that of the anterior clinoid process, deep to the anterior clinoid process. And in this groove lies the internal carotid artery, okay, and this groove is saying just superficial to this groove a sinus is present, what is called as cavernous sinus, okay. So this gives lodgement to that of the internal carotid artery in the carotid groove. So where is the carotid groove? It is present on either side of the hypophyseal fossa here, on the body of the sphenoid bone onto the. Now let us come to the floor of the lateral part. If we see the floor of the lateral part, we will see that it is quite wide, okay. As I said that it is butterfly shape. Let us see which are the bones which forms. As I have already told you, this is the greater wing of the sphenoid, this is the squamous part of the temporal bone, and posteriorly it is the parietal bone, okay. Posteriorly it is the parietal bone which forms the floor, okay. And here if you see this, then you will see the fissures and foramina. If we go, then we will see that most anteriorly in this lateral part there is a fissure, okay. Can you see this fissure here? If I just put the wire here, this fissure where I am putting the wire, this fissure is called as the superior orbital fissure. I think in other skull you can see better, okay. This is a fissure here, yes. This is the superior orbital fissure, just lying deep to the free margin of the lesser wing of the sphenoid. So this fissure is bounded above by the lesser wing of the sphenoid, and this bone we have already seen was the greater wing of the sphenoid. So the lower margin is formed by the greater wing of the sphenoid, and medially, what is this? This is the body of the sphenoid. So this triangular cleft, which is the space is seen, is the superior orbital fissure bounded above by the lesser wing of the sphenoid free margin. Here it is the greater wing of the sphenoid free margin, and on medially it is the body of the sphenoid from where both the wings are taking origin, lesser and the greater wing of the sphenoid are taking. So this is the superior orbital fissure. Now this superior orbital fissure communicates, if you put the wire in this superior orbital fissure, it will come outside in the orbit. See this? It has come outside into the orbit. So it communicates with the orbits, and there are so many structures which passes through this superior orbital fissure that I will tell you in detail in a separate video, where I will tell you which structures are passing through the foraminas and fissures present into the floor of the base, okay, floor or the base of the skull. So this is superior orbital fissure, okay. It will give many structure which will be passing from the middle cranial fossa to that of the orbit, to that of the orbit. It will be the nerves, extraocular muscle, now supplying to extraocular muscle, vein, superior and inferior ophthalmic vein, okay. They all will be passing through this structure plus artery, branch of the ophthalmic artery will be passing through these. So this is in the lateral part of the base of the middle cranial fossa is the superior orbital fissure. Then we come to another fissure here, I mean say not fissure, it is a foramina which is called as foramina rotundum. See here, rotundum. See this where I am passing the wire. This is the foramina rotundum. Slightly broken in this skull. See here, this is, yes, the foramina rotundum. It is, the wire is going, and where this wire will come out, it will come on this pterygopalatine fossa. See, this was the pterygopalatine fossa. Pterygomaxillary fissure is here, and deep to this pterygomaxillary fissure is the pterygopalatine fossa, and this will communicate with the pterygopalatine fossa, through which will pass the maxillary nerve. Through it will pass the maxillary nerve. Okay. Posterior to this foramina rotundum, and this foramina rotundum is present in the greater wing of the sphenoid. Because this whole thing is the greater wing of the sphenoid, so this foramina is present in the greater wing of the sphenoid. After this greater wing of the sphenoid, the foramina rotundum, this foramina, see this foramina, this is another foramina is here, and this foramina is oval in shape, hence called as the foramina ovale. It is called as foramina. Again, this foramina is present in the greater wing of the sphenoid, posteriormost part of the greater wing of the sphenoid, and this gives passage to that of the mandibular nerve. So, rotundum was giving passage to maxillary, this is giving passage to the mandibular nerve. Now then, posterolateral to this foramina rotundum, you can see another small foramina here. See this very small foramina in which I am passing the wire. This is the foramina spinosum. Foramina spinosum. And this foramina spinosum is also present in the greater wing of the sphenoid. Okay? And it gives passage to the middle meningeal artery which comes inside. Middle meningeal, and you can see the groove just extending from this foramina spinosum, and these grooves are branching. See these grooves here on this groove is for the branches of the middle meningeal artery which is coming through the foramina spinosum. Okay, so these are, I can show you better groove here. Yes, in this skull you can see this is the foramina spinosum, and this is the groove in which the branches of this middle meningeal artery, here the trunk will come which will divide into anterior and posterior division. So these are the grooves present in the floor of the middle cranial fossa. Let us come to, after this foramina spinosum, there is one more foramina is present which is the I would say postromedial to the foramina ovale. This foramina here, you can just see this foramina, not very well seen here. Okay, let me put it towards the light. This is that foramina that is called as the foramina lacerum. This foramina. This is called as foramina lacerum foramina, just at the apex of the petrous temporal bone. This is the petrous temporal bone, and this is the apex of the petrous temporal bone is the foramina lacerum. Okay. Now, this foramina gives, I mean, say, in the wall, posterolateral wall of this foramina lacerum, there opens the carotid canal. It opens the carotid canal. And through the carotid canal comes the internal carotid artery, which lies on the foramina lacerum, lies on the superior surface of the foramina lacerum. It doesn't passes through and through the foramina lacerum, but it lies only because it comes from the carotid canal. Okay, and then it just passes on the superior surface of this foramina lacerum. Okay, lacerum. Now, then in this foramina lacerum, in the anterior wall of the foramina lacerum, there will be a minute tunnel, and this minute tunnel, which I cannot show you in this skull by passing a fine wire. But remember that in the anterior wall of this foramina lacerum, there is a opening of a canal, that is the pterygoid canal. It is called as the pterygoid canal, and this pterygoid canal, if you will pass a fine wire in the pterygoid canal here in the anterior border of this carotid, in this foramina lacerum, this will also open into the pterygopalatine fossa in the posterior wall of the pterygoid along with the maxillary nerve. Okay, by the side of it will be the opening of this is the nerve which is going through this pterygoid canal, is called as nerve to the pterygoid canal. It is called as nerve, which will have the synaptic contact with the pterygopalatine ganglion in the pterygopalatine fossa. Pterygopalatine fossa. So this is foramina lacerum. And then you will see on the anterior surface of the petrous temporal bone. Okay, let me see which skull is showing better this anterior surface. Anyway, it is not. Anterior surface of the petrous temporal bone will show the presence of the two openings, or hiatus, and one is, see this is the anterior surface of the petrous temporal bone, and this is one of the hiatus, which is very small opening here, this one, and this is another opening here. These two hiatus, they give passage to a very delicate nerve. One of this nerve through the groove will go towards the foramina lacerum, which is placed medially. This is the opening or hiatus for the greater superficial petrosal nerve. It is hiatus for the greater superficial petrosal nerve. And laterally there is another hiatus which will give to the lesser petrosal nerve. It will give to the lesser petrosal nerve. So these are the grooves and the hiatus present on the anterior surface of the this petrous temporal bone. Okay, petrous temporal bone. Now, then you can see a bump here on the anterior surface. See this bump of the bone? If you can see here, there is a raised area. This one, this is there. Okay, and this is called as arcuate eminence. Okay, arcuate eminence. And this arcuate eminence, if you break this arcuate eminence, okay, there will be this will be in relation to that of the superior semicircular canal, superior semicircular canal of the internal ear. Okay, now that's why there is a bump, because superior semicircular canal is coming and lying in this arcuate eminence. Okay, arcuate eminence. Now if you will just see lateral to it, there is a flat area. Okay, there is a flat area, and this flat area just lateral to this arcuate eminence here is called as tegmen tympani on the anterior surface of petrous temporal bone itself. Tegmen tympani, and if you will break this tegmen tympani, deep to it is the middle cranial middle ear cavity. Okay, the middle ear cavity. Deep to it is the middle ear cavity, right? Then what you will see here is that this is the superior border of the petrous temporal bone on this side also. This is superior border of the petrous, and there is a presence of a very faint groove on the superior border. Yes, it is good here in this skull. I will show you. I am talking about the superior border of the petrous temporal, apex of the petrous temporal bone is here, and you can see this groove. Yes, very good, nicely seen groove. And this groove is will give the, here is the presence of the superior petrosal sinus. Okay, it is the superior petrosal sinus is present on this. So the important thing, another important thing is that just very close to the apex of the petrous temporal bone on anterior surface, there is an impression or a depression, flat depression is seen, and that depression is nothing but the trigeminal impression, because here lies the trigeminal ganglia. Here lies the trigeminal ganglia, and the trunk of the trigeminal nerve crosses the superior border. Okay, crosses the superior border. So these are the structure on the anterior surface of the petrous temporal bone. I will again review what were the impression very close to the apex of the petrous temporal bone on anterior surface of the petrous temporal bone, trigeminal impression for trigeminal ganglia. Superior border of this petrous temporal shows a groove for that of the superior petrosal sinus, and then there is an arcuate eminence. After breaking the arcuate eminence, deep to it is the presence of superior semicircular canal, and lateral to this there is a flat area tegment tympani, which is the roof of the middle ear cavity. There are two hiatuses and two grooves. One of the hiatus, which is medially placed, is called as the hiatus for the greater petrosal nerve. Hiatus for the greater petrosal nerve. Through the groove it goes to the foramina lacerum. Okay, and then there is laterally is the hiatus for the lesser petrosal nerve, and through this groove it goes to the foramina ovale. It goes to the foramina, and this they give passage to the two nerves from the greater superficial petrosal nerve and lesser petrosal nerve. Okay, lesser petrosal nerve. And we in the floor we have already seen there is the fissure. Anteriorly it is in the fissure on lateral side, that is the fissure of the superior orbital fissure, then foramina rotundum, then foramina ovale, foramina spinosum, and the foramina lacerum. They are the important structure here. Okay, this completes your structure of the middle cranial fossa. Okay, thank you very much for watching this video.